Hey there, FreeCAD people. Have you had performance issues with the TechDraw workbench, specifically adding complex objects or even slightly complex objects, and it just takes too long because it's single-threaded and there's a bug or a rendering issue that is outside of the hands of the FreeCAD developers? There's nothing they can do about it. If this describes to you, this macro that I've written may be relevant to your interests. Essentially, it's a two-part solution. This macro fits a selected object to the viewport, and I mean all the way to the edges. As it stands currently, when you do a fit all, it has a little bit of a border around the object so that it's kind of easy to navigate. Similarly, if you select something and you do view selection, again, there's a border around the selection, and this is intuitive, but what if you needed to stretch the object dimensions all the way to the edge of the viewport? That is what my macro does. So I'll show you what it does real quick. I'm invoking it by hotkey. You can set whatever hotkey when I publish this macro later. But as you can see, the width goes all the way to the edges. I have the line width kind of extra high. It's 5 pixels wide, so you're seeing 3 pixels of red material on the edges. Similarly, if I expand the window, it'll find the height is the constraint. And the way this works is by interrogating the current camera. There's a get camera view and a set camera view. And if you ask what is the current get camera, it'll spit out this open indenter string. And it's new line delimited and space delimited, and it comes out looking like this. So specifically, we're looking for the height of the object, and that's what fits to the viewport. So you can just interrogate a given object's size relative to what is relevant in that dimension. So on top, it's only 20 millimeters tall in this case, or half an inch tall. It's 12.7 millimeters. So it's really wide, but it has to be dependent on the view that you're in. So this is all very rigid, and you might be wondering why go to these lengths, right? If there's another option available, like if I'm having problems with the TechDraw workbench, couldn't I take these complex curves, export them to a DXF file, and then open that DXF in another application and print from there? Well, yes, I could, if it weren't for the notion that these complex B-splines don't come out right based on the deviation specification that is very fine. It just seems to output to some deviation that's not at all useful for complex splines. Maybe you have something similar. So with that in mind, I've gone sort of the crazy route of making this macro that fits things based on a rigid view, top, bottom, left, right, front, rear. It'll do that, but it's brittle in the sense that the viewport aspect ratio of the 3D view that you're looking at does not match an aspect ratio of a paper size, and it has to. So to that end, what I'm doing is kind of crazy. I'm using, this is Linux, so I'm using the xdo tool command to look for a window that matches the FreeCAD title, and if I can find an ID of that window, then I invoke a command that tells it to be a certain size. And I've done the math based on my system, based on the window dressing, the exact number of pixels it takes up on the top and on the bottom. The 1026 number kind of compensates. So I'm going to invoke it, and the interface now matches something that is useful for printing. If I invoke the macro, there's red edges on all 4 sides. So when I print out just like this, here's a ruler. It's an English ruler. It's a foot wide, or a foot long, and it's an inch wide. I've measured these things, and they come out very accurately, enough that I can make a mosaic of individual pieces into a larger, useful component that I can use for actual fabrication of a large, stacked kind of layer cake construction. So why am I talking about this instead of just giving you code? Well, this code sucks. This code sucks real bad. It could be better, and I could improve upon it, but I need to know how many people are really out there with this same kind of problem. I got the impression during my searching, some of the comments were really pissed off. Like, why can't I print one-to-one? Why, it's 2025. Why do we have this issue? We're dealing with library dependencies that the FreeCAD developers don't necessarily have power over. and sometimes those rendering issues have bugs, and here we are. So I'm just kind of trying to come up with a crazy solution, and it works for me, right? And if there are not very many of you that have this same problem, I'll just tell you what the limitations are. I'll publish the macro code, and we can move on with our life. But if there are hundreds of you who have the same issue, the macro it's too brittle. It needs to be made better than it is, and I'm only going to have the motivation to do that if there are a lot of you. So, let me know. Let me know how many of you are affected by this. This has been Drew Diller of Regular Cycles LLC. I hope you found this interesting, and if nobody responds, I'm just going to publish the code one day and in the next couple days and see if it's useful to anybody. Thanks.